The town was barely a town. One long road, 3 stop signs, and a rusted-out welcome sign with the O missing in home. I grew up there, in a square military house with green walls that peeled in the heat and a chain-link fence my mother insisted we keep locked, even when we were home. Dust coated everything, even the air. My mother, Clara Orlova, didn't believe in birthday parties or second chances. She ran the house like it was an outpost. No shoes on the carpet, no food outside the kitchen, no sleep until beds were tight enough to bounce a coin. She was a former intelligence officer, though no one said it like that. They said she used to be in, like it explained her silence. I didn't ask questions. I learned early not to. She had rules for everything. How to fold, how to pack, how to disappear. I remember once asking her what the word vacation meant. She looked at me like I'd asked how bullets work. I never saw her cry. Not when my father left. Not when she got the call that he'd remarried. Not when she burned the wedding photo in the sink and told me we were all we had. She wore her past like armor and expected me to do the same. When I told her I wanted to enlist, she didn't argue. She just looked at me and said, "Then you'll learn." I asked what. She walked away. The day I left for the military academy, she didn't come to the bus station. I stood with my bag and my orders, sweating through my shirt, waiting for nothing. That night, in the shared bunk room, I found an envelope tucked into the side pocket of my duffel. No card, just a single line written on a torn receipt. "You chose the Army, not us." After that, silence. No letters, no calls, not even a nod of acknowledgement when I sent updates from overseas. I stopped writing. She didn't notice. We became ghosts in each other's timelines. I told myself it was easier that way. Some years, it even was. On my 30th birthday, a package arrived. No signature, no note, no return address. The base clerk handed it to me with a half smile. "Looks old school," he said. It was wrapped in brown paper, taped at the seams with a precision that felt familiar. The corners were sharp, the handwriting blocky. It smelled faintly of something I couldn't place at first, like cold metal and lavender. I opened it on my bunk. Inside there was a worn locket, gold-plated, scratched down the center like someone had tried to rub a name off. I knew it. My mother used to wear it when I was small, always under her shirt. She said it was the only thing she kept from her own mother. I never saw her open it. She'd just touch it sometimes when she thought no one was looking. The chain was tangled. I ran it through my fingers, half expecting a photo, a message, something that might explain why she'd sent it after 10 years of silence. But the locket was empty. Beneath it, carefully wrapped in felt, was a flash drive. Plain. No label. I plugged it into a secure system at work. Protocol said I should report unknown devices, but something about the package told me not to bring it in yet. Not until I saw for myself. At first, there were just folders. Empty ones, or so it seemed. The names were strings of letters and numbers, meaningless unless you knew what to look for. I did. Buried 2 folders deep was a compressed file, encrypted but sloppily. Whoever locked it down hadn't expected it to be opened by someone trained in counter-intrusion. It took me 4 hours to break through. When I did, I found maps, transport schedules, manifests, scanned bills of lading with serial numbers scrubbed out and retyped, shipment routes across state lines with annotations in a familiar hand, and then the list. Names, dates, locations, civilians, some flagged, some not. I scrolled through page after page of code-marked inventory, crates of military-grade arms marked for disposal, redirected to private ports. The data had timestamps going back almost 15 years. One name appeared twice. Clara Orlova. At first, I didn't react. I just sat back in my chair, arms folded, screen glowing in the dark. A soft hum from the ceiling fan was the only sound. The room felt too small. She hadn't signed the file, but she didn't need to. I recognized the formatting, the phrasing, the way certain blocks were redacted and then revealed one line down. I remembered the way she used to edit my essays with a red pen, drawing lines through entire sections and replacing them with one-word commands: cut, tighten, clarify. This was the same voice. Only now it wasn't over a page. It was over something that moved weapons through hidden roads. I saved a backup. 2, actually. One on a clean drive, the other uploaded to a secured cloud behind firewalls I didn't tell anyone about. Then I turned the original over to command. The official response came within hours. Received. Under review. Do not engage further. I wasn't surprised. I was too close to it. Too tied. I stepped back. Let the machine move. That's what they taught us to do. But weeks passed. Updates slowed. Emails went unanswered. Then, quietly, I was reassigned. Desk duty. No explanation. I asked a friend in Intel what he'd heard. He only said, "Back off, Val. This one's loaded." That night, I opened the locket again. There was a number etched inside, nearly worn away. A 4-digit code I hadn't seen before. I entered it into the backup archive. A second folder opened. Password protected. This one took longer to breach. Inside was audio. Just one file. It was short, maybe 30 seconds. A woman's voice strained, speaking in clipped English with a Russian undertone. "This isn't what we agreed. I said safe passage only. You said nothing about arming both sides." Then a pause. Then my mother's voice. "We don't have to like the work. We just have to finish it." The recording ended. I stared at the screen, not because of what she said, but because she didn't sound cold. She sounded tired. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every look, every silence, every time she said nothing when she should have said something. I thought about the year she got a second phone line installed and wouldn't tell me why. The man who used to park 2 blocks down and wait. The calls she'd take in the basement. The noise she made when I asked who was on the line. A noise that wasn't a lie but wasn't the truth either. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I logged into a restricted system and traced the shipments. One of the route codes matched a port outside San Diego. A name on the recipient list matched a known alias used in joint operations with certain federal task forces. The deeper I looked, the more I found patterns. Routes disguised as humanitarian aid. Locations with dual clearance. And woven through all of it, buried just deep enough to escape attention, a pattern of names clustered around my mother's. Not directly, not in any way that would hold up in court, but if you read between the lines, if you'd been trained by someone who taught you how to vanish in plain sight, it was there. I didn't call her. I booked a flight to Chicago instead. She used to have a contact there, an old handler turned contractor. I'd found his name in one of her notebooks years ago, hidden in a crossword puzzle. He still had an office listed under a shell company that hadn't filed taxes in 7 years. When I landed, I turned my phone off. I checked into a motel under a name I hadn't used since Kandahar. I waited. 2 days later, I found a note slipped under the door. 3 p.m., Lot 5, come alone. The paper smelled like her perfume. The parking lot was mostly empty. A strip of gravel behind a run-down motel, framed by chain-link fencing and low, slouching pines. I parked 2 rows from the back, left the engine running, then turned it off. I sat with the window cracked, watching a pigeon pick at a broken chip bag. The sun was too sharp for October. The heat shimmered off metal. She arrived at 3:04, a dark sedan, unmarked. No plates on the front, windows tinted just enough. She stepped out without urgency. Gray windbreaker, hair tied back. The locket was around her neck. She didn't walk to me. She stood by her car and waited. I got out, locked the door behind me, walked the distance between us slowly, watching for the tell. A shift of the foot, a glance to the corner, a hand near the waist. None came. She kept her arms at her sides, loose. When I stopped a few feet away, neither of us spoke. Up close, she looked older than I remembered. Not fragile, worn. Her eyes had the same focus I remembered from childhood, but the lines around them had deepened, turned downward. She nodded once, like we were in a briefing. "You look like your father," she said. I didn't answer. We weren't here for sentiment. She gestured toward the back of the lot. There was a small service building with a plastic bench in the shade. We sat. The silence stretched for almost a full minute before she spoke again. "I didn't send it to trap you," she said, "if that's what you're thinking." I didn't look at her. "You didn't send it with a warning either." Her hands were still, folded loosely in her lap. "No, I didn't." "You're in those files." "I know." I waited. She didn't elaborate, just sat there, her gaze somewhere in the gravel. "I need to know," I said. "Were you working against them or for them?" She turned to me. Her eyes didn't flinch. "Both." That was the first time I saw fear on her face. Not the sharp kind that triggers instinct, the slow kind, the kind that settles in your bones when the damage is already done. "I stayed in for too long," she said. "At first I thought I could steer it, keep it clean, then I thought I could end it. But you don't end things like that. You survive them, or you don't." There was a tremor in her left hand, barely visible. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. "They threatened you." She nodded. "Not directly." "Not at first. They didn't have to. Just reminded me what could happen. What might happen to you if I asked the wrong question at the wrong time." The words landed flat. I didn't respond. She inhaled, slow and shallow. "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness." "Good," I said. She looked at me then, and I saw it. The thing she used to hide so well. Regret. Not the performative kind. The quiet kind, built over years of watching the line move and stepping over it anyway. "There's a transfer happening," she said. "Denver, 2 days, mid-level cash. Not weapons grade, but enough to track, enough to prove it." "What's the location?" She hesitated. "I'll give it to you, but you need to understand, this isn't sanctioned. The moment you report it, they'll know you went off book, and they'll bury it." "Then we don't report it," I said. She blinked. "We sting it," I added. "Track the drop, log the chain, and let them run the network themselves. Then we close it." She looked at me like she hadn't decided yet whether to be relieved or afraid. "You'll need clearance," she said. "I have enough?" "Not for this." I stood. "Then I'll borrow it." I called Nate that night. We hadn't worked together in 3 years, but he picked up on the second ring. "What do you need?" he asked. "Quiet clearance, temp credentials, and something that looks like a transport manifest." "Who's the target?" "Clara Orlova." A pause. "Is this about what I think it is?" "Yes." He didn't ask more. That's why I called him. "You'll have what you need in 12 hours, he said. "Don't send anything traceable. Burner only." I drove through the night, slept 2 hours in the car, woke stiff and clear. By noon, I had what I needed. A falsified route, 2 trackers, a backdated clearance file that would hold up to mid-level inquiry. We met again the next day. No motel this time. An open park near an abandoned rest stop off I-70. I gave her the file. "We drive in separate cars," I said. She didn't argue. "Denver," she said. "Transfer is scheduled for 0300. Private lot. You'll need to stay out of sight." "I've done this before." She didn't respond. I drove ahead, scouted the lot. Fenced in, camera blind spots every 20 feet. I took photos, logged angles, marked exits, standard procedures. My hands were steady. At 0254, I parked across the street. Low profile, engine off, line of sight on the gate. At 0302, her car pulled in. The truck arrived 5 minutes later. 2 men. Civilian dress, but the posture was wrong. Shoulders too tight. One was armed. Obvious. I watched as they approached her. No formalities, just nods. Then a trunk opened. Crates unloaded. One stamped with an old DOD code. I took photos. Time-stamped, geotagged, encrypted. Sent the files to Nate in real time. Then one of them turned, looked straight at me. I reached for the dash. Too late. The first shot hit the hood. I dropped low, reached for the glove box. backup piece. I moved fast, pushed the door open and rolled out. Another shot, then another. The street lit up. I saw her running, not toward me, away, toward the fence. Gunfire cut through the silence. Someone shouted. I moved to cover, fired twice, hit the tire. The truck swerved, one man down, the other took off. By the time the sirens came, she was gone. I was bleeding. Arm. Nothing deep, but the damage was done. The inquiry started the next day. Unofficial, quiet. I was pulled from the case, cited for breach of conduct, unauthorized action, violation of direct order. I didn't fight it. They gave me desk duty pending review, clearance suspended, pay held. They didn't charge me. That would have made it public. But the message was clear. Let it go. I didn't. I called Nate again. We still have the files? We do. Scrub them. Find the linchpin. It took him 6 days. A name I didn't recognize. Civilian contractor. Logistics consultant. Access to secure sites in 3 states. We tracked him for another week. Then, on a Thursday morning, it broke. Nate forwarded the final packet. Photos, call logs, shipment authorizations signed under alias, all connected. I handed it off, quietly. By Sunday, the network collapsed. Arrests, seizures, internal shakeups, no public statements. Clara was picked up at the Mexico border. No resistance, no statement. She was carrying the locket. They didn't tell me. Nate did. You weren't listed on the report, he said. I know. You want me to find out what happens to her? No. He paused. You sure? Yes. My choice was made before I ever saw her face again. I didn't do it for pride or punishment. I did it because I was trained to see patterns, and she had chosen hers. The meeting was set in a name I didn't say out loud. St. Vrain Logistics Park, west side of Denver, Lot 6B. The kind of place designed for easy exits and plausible deniability. No cameras, no city jurisdiction, just enough freight traffic to make anything seem routine. The sting wasn't mine. I didn't have command backing. I didn't have jurisdiction. What I had was time, silence, and one analyst who still believed in the kind of order you don't ask permission to enforce. I briefed Nate first, not in person, never in person. I sent him a drop file. Timeline, aliases, vehicle descriptions, access codes. The cover story was tight. Clara was back in, working as a neutral broker. Her record supported it just enough to keep questions shallow. The bait was the cash. Post-conflict small arms, supposedly misallocated after shipment redirection in Afghanistan. Unregistered, off-grid. We arranged a delivery. Nate forged the manifest. I planted the signal tag. Clara didn't ask for the name of the buyer. She just said, "Where?" That was the moment I knew, not suspected. Knew. She wasn't trying to stop the operation. She was trying to control it. I should have pulled out then, told Nate to shut it down, sent everything to CID and let it rot in the system until someone else found it. But that's not what I did. I waited. 2 days before the meet, she called. First time in 11 years. I didn't answer. She left a message. You think you're doing this clean, but it's not clean. It never was. Then she hung up. I listened to that message on repeat for an hour. Then I erased it. The morning of the operation, I wore civilian cargo, nothing tactical. No sidearm, just a recorder and a backup tracker. My car was stripped. No plate, no registration. The kind of vehicle that doesn't last long in databases. I parked 6 blocks east and walked in through a service road overgrown with dry weeds and rusted signage. Clara was already there. So was the truck. At 3:07, a second vehicle arrived, unmarked, lights off. A man stepped out, clean suit, civilian, soft shoes. I recognized the posture immediately. Former agency, contract side. The kind that used to float between departments before oversight tightened. He didn't shake hands. He didn't ask questions. He opened the back of the truck and looked inside. Looks right, he said. Clara handed him a folder. I stayed behind cover, recording everything. The tag confirmed the cash was still in the vehicle. I reached for the signal transmitter. Just a tap. A trigger for the response team Nate had standing by. Then the man turned and said one word I never expected to hear. Abort. The other man near the truck looked up. So did Clara. She moved too fast, slammed the folder shut, reached for her pocket. Not a weapon, a jammer. I moved forward. Too late. The signal dropped. My comms went dead. The truck accelerated. Clara didn't look back. She ran. I didn't chase her. I chased the truck, jumped the barrier, hit the pavement hard, lost footing, and went down. My shoulders screamed. I rolled, got back up, drew the tag reader. The signal was gone. Everything went silent. By the time local units arrived, called in blind by Nate when our system went dark, the scene was clear. No weapons, no vehicle, no Clara. And one agent dead. Shot once, close range. Wrong place, wrong moment. His name was Kenneth Moore, 37, logistics unit out of Salt Lake, temporary assignment, no history with the operation, wrong uniform, wrong night. I gave my full statement, sat for 6 hours under fluorescent lights while CID tried to figure out how I'd been there without orders. They didn't arrest me, they suspended me. Access revoked, equipment seized, clearance frozen pending review. The file they handed me was one sheet of paper. Subject removed from active operations. Reassignment pending. I went home. For 3 days, I didn't speak to anyone. I ran diagnostics on the burner, rebuilt the logs, traced what little metadata I still had. The folder Clara handed over that night, the one she'd slammed shut, it had a signature, one I'd seen before, buried in a folder from the flash drive she mailed on my birthday. It was a shell company, East Coast registration, dissolved in 2011. But the bank records didn't match. Money still moved. Small amounts, enough to cover hotel rooms, travel, food. A single name attached to every transaction, L.E. Wyatt. I looked deeper. Wyatt wasn't a person. It was an alias. One Clara had used during a 2-year assignment in Brussels. I remembered the name because she once carved it into the inside of a drawer, a habit she had, marking places she'd been. I found the original photo of the carving, still had it, stored in a backup from an old phone. Proof. Nate called me that night. I shouldn't be calling, he said. Then why are you? Because they pulled you too fast. I didn't answer. He continued. I ran the packet anyway, on my own. What did you find? The alias Wyatt links to 3 offshore accounts, low activity but tied to routing numbers used in arms movement between 2014 and 2018. And one of the account signatures matches an ID Clara used in 09. I don't know how she kept it clean, but it's her. I leaned against the window. Rain tapped the glass like code. She's not working solo, I said. No, Nate replied. She's covering. For who? I don't know yet. But the files you gave me, they connect to something bigger, something formal, not just smuggling, procurement, disposals. Someone's running inventory through federal dumps, masking it with dummy projects. It's been going on for years. I closed my eyes. And she's the leak. She's part of it. Still active? No, she's burnt. They'll cut her loose. I waited. Then we use that. How? Find the next link. Nate didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he said, You're out, Val. You don't have access. You don't have cover. You keep going. You do it without backup. I know. Then why? Because I'm not finished. It took 3 more weeks. I worked out of a rented room above a closed cafe in Cheyenne, cash only. I changed phones every 5 days. I didn't call Nate directly. We passed updates through shared audio logs disguised as white noise studies. I built the case, 1 shipment route at a time, 1 budget trail, 1 dummy vendor. Each one led to the same central node, a company contracted through DoD sub-procurement listed as a disposal management firm. They handled off-site weapons destruction, only they didn't. They rerouted, sold, laundered. And Clara, my mother, was their compliance officer until 2019. The name on the records now? Same address, different name. Harriet C. Wynn. I requested a trace. Same birthday, same security questions. She hadn't even changed the answers. Nate sent the final packet through an encrypted channel. I verified everything. Then I sent it to 3 inboxes. One went to CID, one to a Senate oversight contact I trusted just enough, and one to a reporter I met during a Kabul lockdown in 2017. She owed me a favor. I didn't send it with a message, just the files. 4 days later, the network collapsed. 32 arrests, 5 resignations, 2 field closures. And one woman picked up at the Mexico border. No fight, no statement. They called me in, off record, asked if I wanted reinstatement. I said no. They didn't ask twice. Nate left me a voicemail that night. "You did it," he said. I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted it. I didn't go to the trial, didn't request updates, didn't open the emails that came after. I knew what I needed to know, that she'd made her choice. And I'd made mine long before she ever sent that locket. I didn't feel relief or regret, just stillness. The kind that comes after a long silence finally ends, not because someone speaks, but because there's nothing left to say. I was transferred without ceremony. They called it a repositioning based on performance and security posture, but it meant one thing. They didn't want me on the ground anymore. Too much visibility, too many questions, the kind of liability they couldn't afford if someone in a higher office decided to audit what had already quietly been handled. So they moved me into a digital unit. Cybersecurity operations, internal defense, all glass walls and white light and screens that never went dark. The kind of place where information moves fast and faces stay anonymous. They gave me a desk, a badge, clearance restored, but at a level that kept me contained. No field access, no weapon, no voice in ops. It was fine. There's a certain comfort in being boxed in after too long on the outside. The room smelled of servers and coffee gone cold. My office had no windows. The lights never changed. I learned to track the time by the angle of people's fatigue. The slouch in shoulders by 1600, the 5th cup of coffee by 1800, the silence that settles after 0200 when only the ones with deadlines or nowhere else to be stay behind. No one asked about Denver. No one mentioned Clara. I was glad. There's a kind of mourning that doesn't wear black. It wears protocol. It moves through you slowly, like data loss. Corruption of memory until you're left with static where meaning used to be. I worked my shifts. I walked home. I cooked the same meals. I paid attention to things like receipts and passwords and how long the hallway light took to flicker back on. And I didn't look back until the letter came. Plain envelope, no stamp, no address, left in my inbox at work. 7 words, no greeting, no sign-off. You did the right thing. I know. The handwriting was hers, precise, leaning slightly forward, the same she used on field reports and grocery lists, slanted as if always running out of time. There was no return address, no fingerprint, nothing traceable, but the paper smelled faintly of lavender, a perfume I hadn't smelled in over a decade, one she used to wear on Sundays when we still pretended to be a family. I didn't report it. I didn't show it to Nate. I folded it once, carefully, and placed it inside the locket she'd mailed on my birthday. The chain was still tangled. I didn't fix it, I didn't wear it, I didn't throw it away, I just kept it. Because some goodbyes don't happen in person, some don't happen in words, some are written in silence, sent through time, handed off in pieces. And some, like this one, arrive too late to change anything, but just in time to remind you that something had once been there. That morning, I stepped outside early. No alarm, just the kind of waking that feels final. The air was cold, not the sharp kind that cuts, the kind that makes you breathe slower, the kind that tells you nothing is urgent now. The street was quiet, pale light just beginning to show at the edges, frost on the railing, a dog barking somewhere 2 blocks over, the smell of heat rising from vents. Familiar. I stood on the sidewalk for a long time. No destination, no call to make, just breath, just stillness. It had been months since Denver. Clara's trial had concluded behind closed doors. National security, sealed transcripts, procedural silence. The kind of ending that doesn't make headlines but leaves paper trails in classified folders. She wasn't sentenced publicly. I didn't request access to the outcome. I didn't need to. She'd left the letter. That was enough. Not a reconciliation, not an apology, just proof that she knew what she did, that I did what had to be done, and that neither of us would ever say it out loud. People talk about closure like it's a door you can shut with a click. One sound and the past stays on the other side. It's not. It's a corridor. Long, quiet, echoing with steps that don't belong to anyone anymore. You don't walk through it. You wait there until the echo fades, until your own footsteps stop trying to follow something that no longer exists, until you realize you're still standing, not because you overcame anything, but because you're not chasing peace anymore. You're just in it. I kept working, not for redemption, not for recognition, just for the rhythm. I liked knowing what time the firewall checks ran. I liked tracing intrusions down to their silent source, watching lines of code try and fail to lie. There's something about patterns that steadies the hand. There's something about systems that makes silence manageable. No voices, no surprises, just logic. One night, weeks after the letter, I ran a scan on an old archive drive, one I hadn't touched since my deployment days, mostly logs, notes, harmless scraps. But in the middle of the export, I found a file with no label. I opened it. Audio, short, garbled, her voice, younger. She was reading something. Not a report, a list. Then softly, she stopped and said my name. Not as a warning, not as a command. Just once. Then silence. I closed the file. Didn't delete it. Didn't copy it. I let it stay where it was. Some things don't belong in the present. On the anniversary of Kenneth Moore's death, I wrote his name on the edge of my notes. Then I put the paper through the shredder. Because remembrance isn't for others to witness. It's for discipline, to keep yourself from becoming what you hunted. That winter, I moved to a new apartment. Smaller, closer to base. No view, just a single window facing north. I didn't bring much. A bed, a chair, a single locked drawer. I didn't hang any photos. I didn't bring the locket out. I kept the lights low, the radio off. And every morning, I stepped outside into the cold. Same breath, same pause. No one waiting, no one watching, just stillness. I wore it like armor, and that was enough. If you've come this far with me, thank you. If this reminds you of something in your own life, or someone, I'd be honored to hear about it. Quiet truths matter. You can subscribe if you'd like to keep reading stories like this. No pressure, I'll be here.